Joe, who's online too. So I'm going to go to Joe. Joe, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Joe. This is Tracie, and Don is with me today. So welcome to the show.
Right. Hi, Tracie and Don, and thanks so much for taking my call.
Sure. But let me before you go in. I was just going to say the screeners have put up that you are saying that God is the ultimate source of love in the world. Is that about right? Is that what you're?
Well, right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of corollaries which go with that. And first of all, I say your show is great. I love your show. Unfortunately, I don't have the intellectual horsepower, debate horsepower as you guys do. You're very good at what you do, but and you're probably actually more moral than many Christians out there. So I think good people can be non-religious people too. We're both just seeking the truth, actually, and I think so few people do that today, where they approach it with some intellectual rigor, seeking the truth. And I listened to Dawkins, and he kind of converted Young because he didn't find the God of explanation. He found natural selection with random mutations as being evolution, and he really didn't need a God of explanation. And I agree with him at all. I think we could explain a lot of things, maybe the beginning of the Big Bang, but the rest is science, and science will fill in the gaps. But what I believe in, I think there is a God of love. I think love is a metaphysical component. Now, there are changes in brain chemistry, but they seem to happen after the feelings of a love are initiated. So it's like the chicken and egg.
Now wait a minute. You're saying that you're saying then that you do not believe that things like the chemicals in your brain, like dopamine and that, are actually what drives the feelings that you feel. You're saying you don't believe that your brain chemistry.
Yeah, no, by background.
Because that flies in the face of the models of how emotional feedback occurs. Like you have an event that happens, you feed that into your brain, and then your brain responds with an emotional response that it gives back to you, and then you become aware of it. Like that's the model of emotion.
You become aware of love.
Yeah. You become aware of fear, you become aware of anger, you become aware of all of it once your brain feeds it back to you, and then your conscious self is given that information from the unconscious parts of your brain that regulate that.
Right. There's no doubt. If you look at cocaine, you take the cocaine, you get the neurotransmitter release, and then you have the feeling.
Right. And when you have a person, when you bond with another person, it's the same thing. That person then sets off these good chemicals that then give you these good feelings. It's the same way. You have a stimulus and a response.
Right. But if you think about
what we're fishing for is...
Hold on, let him go. Go ahead.
Instantaneous love feeling. And you can instantaneously measure neurotransmitters in the brain. They're not nearly at the levels as you would get by using cocaine or something like that.
Well,
you have a citation for this?
Well, but I guess my question would be, some of the most intense feelings that people can have are things like fear, right? Like traumatic response is extremely intense. There are going to be things that make me have more intense fear than other things, correct? I'm more afraid of a cockroach than I am a grasshopper, I can promise you. And if I see a grasshopper on me, I'll probably just brush it off. If I saw a cockroach on me, I would be screaming and running around the room. So there is like intensity differentials depending on the stimulus. And I don't know whether or not it's true about cocaine, but to me it's an irrelevancy because I already would grant you that different stimulus will stimulate different levels of emotional response.
Well, correct. But I mean, it's just my personal opinion that love goes beyond neurotransmitters.
What do you mean when you say it's just your personal opinion? Like, what does that mean? You just think it for reasons?
It sounds to me like you got this big wonderful thing that's
a delay in neurotransmission after the initial feeling.
You wouldn't be aware of it if your brain had not sent you the signal. You would not be aware of it. What you're basically saying is, I feel pain before my nerves, go to my brain and send back the signal of pain, and that doesn't even make sense. I mean, that makes no sense. What you're saying is that you feel it before the stimulus is actually fed into your brain, which then issues the response to your conscious self. And that doesn't fit the model of feedback. The feedback loop.
Yeah, we'd love a scientific paper on this.
I would say you might want to look into intrapersonal communication, which is how you communicate with yourself. Because that's what we're talking about here, is how your brain provides feedback to you, so that you communicate into your brain. There's this dog growling at me, and then your brain kicks back fear or defense or whatever your brain kicks back, depending on who you are, because different people are going to have different responses to that. But it doesn't make any sense to say that I'm feeling fear before my brain has even processed that I'm in a situation that puts me into a state where I should be afraid.
Well, I think we're just talking about the timing of
but the timing is important, because the timing that you're describing does not make sense. It doesn't seem...
Yeah, that's why I'm fishing for a scientific paper or something, because you've got this claim and you're not backing it up with evidence. And I understand that maybe you read it somewhere or whatever, but you know, we'd welcome to take this offline on the TV at atheistexperience.com.
Well, go ahead, go for another couple minutes, go for a minute or two. Just let me know if I've misunderstood something.
No. I don't think you misunderstood. I think we're just talking about the timing of neurotransmitter release. And if we just take the premise that love is also metaphysical, it's not entirely.
I don't know what that means. Can you define what you mean by metaphysical?
It's mysterious. Part of the soul. It's part of our spiritual nature.
Okay, I don't understand what a soul and spiritual nature are. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Okay. I believe we are people that are both spirit and physical.
Okay, what are you calling spirit?
Okay, so spiritual soul.
What are you? Okay, that doesn't help, because I don't know what a soul is either. So can you explain to me what is a soul, what is a spirit?
My last show was the failure of the soul.
What part of me is the soul? Like when I'm looking for a soul, and doesn't even have to, you can make it an emotional response, whatever you want to call it. But what would I understand, or what would I interpret as my soul?
I think your soul is basically your personality, your spiritual. I know you can say personality is based on the brain, but I think
it is.
The soul is the kind.
And when you have brain damage, your personality can change.
Spiritual. No, I agree with you totally on that.
But then, wait. Let me break this down, because, and this is not, I'm not harshing on you. I just want you to help you understand the trouble that I'm having. So when someone says this is metaphysical, and I say, what is metaphysical? Well, it has to do with the soul and the spirit. And I say, okay, I don't know what you mean by soul and spirit, so let's talk about that. And then you say, you know, it's this part. It's like your personality is what Tracie might relate to what I'm calling soul. And so I'm like, I gotcha, personality. And then you say, you would probably say this is a brain function, but I'm thinking more on a spiritual level, which means that the thing that I just identified with you describing, where I said, okay, I get you, now I don't get you anymore. Because when you told me personality, I got the idea, I understand personality and where that comes from and how that functions. But then when you say, except not personality, like you're thinking of personality, Tracie, it's like a different spiritual personality. Now I no longer, now even personality doesn't mean personality anymore to me. So I'm trying to figure out, what would I identify as a soul or a spirit?
Right, and I'm just saying it's the dual nature that I believe people are.
I know you believe it. I'm trying to figure out what you believe. What is it that you're calling the part of the nature that I have trouble identifying? Like, what is that?
Well, I know, yeah, and I really have trouble defining a soul. I don't even think theologians can exactly define what a soul is, except our spiritual, everlasting nature. Just a
seems like you're inventing a mystery so that God can explain it. Well, is what I'm hearing.
The problem that I'm having is that I don't know that what you're describing has been identified, and I don't know what to relate it to in reality. Like in reality that I experience, I don't know what this is that we're discussing.
Sure, and there's no scientific proof of a soul either. But I wanted to ask
you. But you have to mean something by it. I guess that's the thing that it doesn't matter if there's scientific proof. You have to mean something. Like, this soul points to something that you are describing, and that's what I'm kind of most interested in.
Okay, well, let's take it. I know you won't believe this either, but a near-death experience where people say their soul leaves the body, they rise up, and then they kind of move through a tunnel of lights or something. And some people say it's a dying brain. Mm-hmm. Some people say it's more than that. It's that entity that, when we die, rises up from our bodies, just like in a near-death experience. So it's a spiritual entity, not dependent on our bodies for life.
But what would that be? What would that be? Like, what would it be? Because if your brain, where would, I don't know even how to express it. I don't know what that would be.
It seems like it's a common facet of a lot of religions that you're gonna cheat death, and you're gonna live on, and you're gonna be a spirit or
I guess here's
a ghost
the thing.
or
other
a
species, other social species have emotional feedback, and they have similar emotional feedback to what we experience. And so I guess my question would be, and I'm not being flip, but for example, rats are very social. Right? I mean, they're social. They've been involved in experiments where they show what seems to be a tendency towards sometimes, I don't want to say altruism, but empathy toward other rats, for example. They'll get disturbed by another rat experiencing pain or something. And so I guess my question would be, do you think that, like, when a rat dies, that a rat is seeing itself, and that the rat personality is embodied somehow in what? Like, what embodies that? What would it be?
Yeah, no, and I would totally agree with you with the rat, and mostly because the rats have no concept of reason or morality.
Well, certainly they reason. They're very good at mazes, right? I mean, they understand the goal, and they understand how to, you have to be able to reason, or you couldn't work a maze.
Well, I guess I'm talking about the higher levels of functioning of morality, of right and wrong. Rats don't know right and wrong.
Well, do you have to have right and wrong? The rat does have... He does understand, though, that there's something not right when the other rat is being tortured. Like, the rat won't eat if the other rat is shocked when he eats, and he sees that. So how is that not a concept of wrong when he says, if I eat, that rat suffers, and so I'm going to not eat? Isn't that kind of a demonstration of a moral tendency?
I think that's just some simple reflex of survival, and doesn't really...
How does it help the rat survive to not eat because another rat suffers?
Only humans have souls, right?
Well, no, wait.
Because the rat would be suffering if he ate. He's seeing that. He's associating Pavlovian with eating and suffering. But wait
a minute. That is not at all the theory behind what the rats do, and primates and other animals do this as well. Empathy and the empathetic response is actually considered to be a demonstration of a moral tendency in an animal. And for you to say that animals don't have this, animal behavioral psychologists have studied moral tendencies in other species, and we do have more than just the rat study. There's other examples as well. There's other research as well into what would be either morality or what some people feel more comfortable calling proto-morality. I'm okay calling it morality because it's a group.
We're far more like other animals than a lot of people want to admit.
Right, but I don't think animals have a high concept of right and wrong.
But if it's your personality, they have personalities. I have cats, and they're all different.
Well, they have personalities,
right.
Too, but I don't think they have higher-level cognitive function.
Why would higher-level cognitive function...
Stealing a banana from another monkey is not right.
Why would higher-level cognitive function be important if personality can transcend the physical? Why wouldn't the personality of a cat transcend the physical? Why would whether their level of reasoning matter? Do you think that people who, for example, have damaged brains no longer have souls?
No, but from the
they can't reason.
Saying, if a monkey steals another monkey's banana, it doesn't view that as
why
wrong.
Does that matter to the concept of the personality? That if I have an existent personality, it can transcend a physical body. Like, why would whether or not you have moral reasoning be important to that? Like, this feeds into that initial question: what is a soul? Because why would a soul require higher level reasoning or morality? Why wouldn't it just require particular bonding feelings, for example?
Because I think a soul becomes responsible for its actions, whereas a monkey is not responsible for its actions.
We can, we can have morals without God, believe it or not.
Well, I agree we can have morals without God, but I'm more curious about why the type of personality matters with what, I mean, if it has a personality, why wouldn't that personality transcend the death of, the rat or the dog or the monkey or the person? Like, if personality can go on, if that part of the brain that produces personality can go on after the brain dies in some unexplained way, why would being able to understand morality even matter?
Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Okay, so then a soul is not contingent on whether or not you have a capacity for moral reasoning.
Do you think religions have anything positive to say about morality?
Well, that's a whole kind of other thing.
That's a big can of worms, isn't it?
But I mean,
but of course I do, because but I think they do a lot of things wrong too. There's one question that I've always been wanting to ask.
Okay,
do you believe there's no greater love than laying down your life for your friend?
I don't know that love requires death.
Well, no, he's not asking that. He's asking, would there be some other example of a greater love? Yeah, I think that there might be a greater love. Let's see.
Taking care of somebody who's sick is a fine example.
God wanted Abraham to prove his love by killing his son, not by killing himself. Right?
Right. You go barking up the wrong tree, because I think the Bible is bereft in so many ways. It's history.
Right, but the point is, what if somebody said, I will kill somebody else that I love because I love you more? I would sacrifice someone else I love. That's the whole Jesus story, right? So, God loves you so much, he killed his son.
Two wrongs don't make a right. So the American soldier that throws himself on a hand grenade to save his platoon, what greater love could he have done?
Losing someone he loves more than himself. If I love if I love someone more than myself, let's say I say I love you, and you say, is that the greatest love? And I say, yes, I have the greatest love. If you were in a chair and my child was in a chair and I could only save one of you and you were both going to be electrocuted and I had to push a button, I would save you and let my child die. Okay, so that's not me like murdering my child. I have to make a choice. Someone's going to die. But I'm saying I would kill my kid before I'd kill you. The whole biblical story is based on the idea that would mean that I love you more than even someone that I love more than myself. So I love my child more than myself, but I would even sacrifice my child for you, right? Isn't that the idea?
No, I really don't think it is the idea. I think it's just a flat.
Would it be a greater love?
I think, and people.
Than killing myself. It's easy. It would be easy for me to say I'll die to save you. It would be hard for me to say I would let my child die in order to save you. That would be much harder for me to not kill someone else, but to allow that person to die. I would rather sacrifice. There are a lot of people who say I'd rather sacrifice myself than someone that I care about to save someone else. Like the whole trolley dilemma. There are people who are like, I would rather be if I could be on the track and kill myself, I would do that. If I could derail the train and die, I don't want to kill anybody on the tracks. I don't want to hit the hitchhiker. I don't want to hit the group. I'd rather just kill myself.
Right. And I'm not talking about a suicide or suicide by cop thing. I'm not talking about something like that. I'm talking about you're in a situation like the American soldier that threw himself on a hand grenade.
Sure. And you said, is there greater love?
But he knew that would have killed his friend.
But you asked, is there any greater love? And I'm saying maybe if I would choose you to save over my child, that might be a greater love, because I would almost rather die than kill my own child to save someone. But if I was willing to kill my child to save them, then that would be me giving up somebody I love more than my own life to save you. And I think that would be a greater love.
I know.
I think that's a fine example. Unfortunately, it doesn't relate to any religious parables, does it?
Well, no, it does, because there's no greater love hath any man than to lay down his life for his friends. And I'm saying the guy who would kill his own child for his friends loves them more.
That's right. Good beer buddies.
Yeah, but you're bringing the child into it.
Because you asked if there was a greater love, and that's the first thing that came to mind. She answered your question. That would be a greater love.
What was the point of the question?
The point of love is if your life is in peril, or do you ever hear the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe? It was a Catholic priest in a concentration camp, and there was an escapee, and the Nazi guard took out 10 prisoners to shoot randomly. Took out one guy. He said, I have a family, I have a daughter. The priest came, he said, no, take me, put him back in line. I'm a Catholic priest. Okay? that's the types of situation I'm talking about. Not choosing between a kid and me and all that other stuff.
What if the guards said, we will let this guy with the family go, but we won't take you, but we will take your wife, and now he still says okay?
Well, I mean, I think that would be up to the wife to make that decision. But just go with.
Well, the guards are making the decision, really. I mean, they're going to kill somebody, and it's up to him to decide who. The
commandant makes the decision.
Right. I mean, it's a situation where the guards have put everybody in a situation where no one may act morally. Really, they're all going to act kind of in a way that is difficult. Like you said, he can give up his own life, but what if they said the only way this man's going to ever see his children again is if you give up your wife? And the guy loves his wife and would rather die.
I understand,
but he can't.
Right, but Catholic priests aren't married, so the only thing he could give up was his life. Okay. Right, and in that situation, would there have been a greater love that he could have committed?
What about if it was his mother?
Would it have been of a greater love to stay in line and say, hell no, I'm not being executed.
I would agree with you that you would have to have some compassion or concern or care or call it love, whatever you want, in order to be willing to put yourself in there for that child. For example, if someone were going to murder a child and put a gun to a child's head and then said it's either this kid or you can stand in for them, yes, I would die for that child. I think most people would. I think there are people that wouldn't, and I would not fault them for that. I don't think they're evil people, but I don't know that I would even think about it. I think I would just, instinctively be like, "Do not kill this child."
So let's pop up a level. What does this have to do with God?
Well, I'm just saying that because at the time, okay, for example, no Sanhedrin person would give up their life for a beggar at the time. The only time where you would die would be in the glory of battle.
Who? Wait, what are we talking about? When? Is this the story you were talking about? Is that the context we're in?
No, I'm talking, the topic is we're off God. And I'm saying this is a quote from Jesus, which was kind of novel at the time.
No, because people have been dying for other people since there's been wars, right? You go off to war in order to protect the people you leave home. So people have been dying for each other since there's been opportunity to do so.
Right. I said minus the glory that had been there for dying for one's country in war that was promulgated through the armies.
You don't think there was such a thing as self-sacrifice? You don't think people died, for example, for their children, or people that threw their lives on the line or for their communities, or
right? There's not enough food. Who gets the food? Generally, the kids do, right?
Usually the child gets the
Sometimes.
food. The parents do that. But all I'm saying, not all the time. You're right. But all I'm saying is that it's probably true that there is no greater love than doing that.
I mean, I guess a person can look at it that way. I'm not going to sit and argue with you about the value that you place on particular types or styles or demonstrations of love. I mean, it's kind of here and there.
Can we agree that killing your kid is a bad thing and it's not a demonstration of love?
Oh, my God. That's the most perverse thing when people say the person was possessed or God made me kill this person or anything like that.
So when God kills Jesus, that was a bad thing, right? And not a demonstration of love.
No,
it's perverse.
It's perverse.
Well, I think besides the sin issue, I don't want to go on that, but if he said it, then he did it. When I was in the Army, the drill sergeant did everything we did and did twice of it, and we had a lot more respect for him. Christ went through life as God so that when we suffer, when we're in prison, but he says, I've always done it for you. I came and I did it for you as a human being.
Bullshit.
Just like the drill sergeant example. You have much more respect when someone goes through those exercises and basic training in the Army and does it better than you than just telling you to do it.
So do you think if someone commits murder and someone else is willing to go to the chair for them, that we should allow that?
Is that a good thing? Is it sacrificial? What is it called?
If an innocent person says, I'll take the chair and let this murderer go free, would that be good?
I think it's morally reprehensible.
Right. I don't, I would wonder why the person who's guilty, I would wonder why they would take that place of that.
No, the person who's innocent.
Who made the rule that there had to be a sacrifice?
Let's say
who made that rule?
Let's say it's somebody that's against the death penalty who basically says, I will die as an innocent to save this other person because I find the whole death penalty completely right. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea that the only reason anybody, in the Bible, the only reason anybody had to die is because God set up this system of sacrifice,
right,
which is really weird.
So he's killing himself to appease himself for a rule that he made up. What a bunch of bullshit.
He could have just said, treat people well and I will judge you on that. Instead of people must die, right? I mean, that nobody had, let's be clear on this.
Kill people and call it
love. No one
had
to die, right? Like, this is an example where you have a situation where all these people are, you got your military troop there, and they're not in any danger, and someone pulls the pin on a hand grenade, throws it down, and then jumps on the grenade themselves. How does that even make sense?
Oh, that's love.
Well, because all 4 people would die that were there.
Right, but the guy who pulled the pin gets snaps for then sacrificing himself on the grenade that he just unloaded?
I think you're talking about the same guy.
Yeah. The guy who set up, the guy who sasacrifices himself actually put everybody in the situation where they're going to die. That's kind of like what we're talking
about here, right? If we're talking about Jesus as God or the Son, it's all confused.
Who would applaud that? That's like, why do you get snaps for that?
It's like gory performance art.
I'm talking about a grenade that's thrown in from the enemies. When someone wants to intentionally
but if we're
kill
talking about
themselves,
Jesus,
suicide.
right? And we're saying that he's God. He pretty much he's the one that pulled the pin on the grenade. He pulled the pin on the grenade himself, then threw himself on it, right? I mean, he's the one.
Awesome.
Because I think, that's right. And I agree with you. I agree with you, Tracie, completely. I don't think that for our Christian salvation, or as God for our salvation, that Christ needed to die. He did not need to die.
Correct.
God could have blinked his eyes and saved us.
Sure. So then you don't get points for killing yourself when you made the need to die.
But just don't look at the killing. Look at the suffering, right?
So there was no need for the suffering. Is it just suffering porn?
I would love it if Christians worried more about the suffering that they have caused other people in the world. Christians have murdered and tortured Jews and witches and all these things, and they've caused far more suffering than Jesus ever went through.
If Jesus went through any,
if he even existed.
But I guess my whole thing is that I don't get this whole suffer porn thing. It reminds me of Mother Teresa and how she was all into the suffering and seeing people suffer, and it's just like, what in the heck? I mean, how is that beautiful for someone to suffer? And how is it meaningful for them to suffer unnecessarily or to just sort of self-flagellate? How is that beautiful? I don't get it.
You agree. I agree with you. I don't think self-flagellation. Some people, unfortunately, and in my profession, I see cancer people suffering all the time.
Right, but the story of Jesus is a story of self-flagellation. This is what I'm saying. Jesus tortured himself. He didn't have to. We just sat there and went through this and said, he didn't have to set up the system this way. He chose a course where he would suffer just for the sake of suffering because it wasn't necessary.
Right, but he did nothing to himself. It was all the Romans
created the entire situation. He orchestrated this
whole thing. Is Jesus God or not?
This is the plan. When I went to church, they called this the plan of God, right? God's plan for salvation. So how do we sit there and say Jesus didn't do it to himself? He surely did. He set up the whole thing.
Either as a plan or it was a fuck up, right? Pick one.
Well, I think he accepted it. But let's just take
he created it. He didn't just accept it. He orchestrated this on himself for no reason.
You think he made the Sanhedrin and Judas and all those people come to him, arrest him, prosecute him, and
if I believe that salvation comes through Christ and this was God's plan of salvation, the answer to that question has to be yes. Yes, I believe Jesus did all of this, orchestrated all of this.
Mind control over all these people, right?
No, what I'm saying, some kind of
mind control.
What I'm saying is that when you are a God, and this is what your plan is contingent on, it's not going to fail. God created the universe according to the story, did he not?
Is God the same as Jesus or not?
Did he know when he created the universe, the course of events through to the end of time? Is he all-knowing?
Yes.
Okay, so then he knew when he built it that he built it in such a way that all of these events were going to play out exactly as they did. Did he not set up a universe where the Sanhedrin would do what they did? He could have built a different universe. He built this one. So yes, he did build the universe in such a way that this would necessarily occur. That's impossible to argue otherwise.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay, so then yes, he did set it up to where the Sanhedrin would do this. He did set it up to where Pilate would do this. He did set it up to where the Jews would do this, to where, yes.
All say in unison.
Yeah, I think he was cognizant they would do it, but I don't think he made them do it.
He set up a universe that would do this. He could have set up a different universe.
He knew that their free will would choose to do this. Oh, I know,
but
he
could
knew that
have,
their free will
he could have had a different universe. He set the universe up in such a way that this would occur.
Right.
This is the one he chose. This is the universe he chose for, right? Of all the universes that could have been built, he chose the one where the Sanhedrin would do this. So yes, he gets the credit for what the Sanhedrin has done. Because he chose that
and in
universe.
the Garden of Eden, he said, if it's your will, Father, please let this cup pass me by.
Which makes no sense.
Because he knew exactly what was going to happen.
Right. Why would you ask, if it's your will, let this cup pass from me, if you know that God knew at the beginning of time everything that was going to play out and exactly how it was going to play out, and this is the way it's going to be? Why would you choose? Why would you even ask that it should be otherwise?
But if you knew, wouldn't that be your human nature too? Because he was fully human too.
But he was God, so he also knew the plan. And he knew that this wasn't going to pass. It's really weird that he's asking himself to let himself off the hook, don't you think?
A lot of drama.
Well,
it's weird.
Think as a human. But look at it this way too, okay? How about the political prisoners that are being tortured? How about the people that suffer? How about the people that suffer
thank you, God, for setting up a universe where all these people would be tortured, right? Thank you, God, for setting up a universe where we have child rape.
Thanks for Ebola, yeah.
Thank you, This is the universe he chose for.
It was the very best one he could ever come up with.
This is what I want.
Yep.
This is the one I'm going to build.
This is the best one. Yep.
Well, no, it's obviously not the perfect one, but you don't.
It was the one he chose
for. He kind of fucked it up then, didn't he?
Well, no, it's maybe he didn't want a perfect one. I don't know. I don't know what God was thinking, but.
Do you know the value of a feast before you fast? You have to fast to know the value of a feast, and you have to feast to know the value of a fast. So
is God omniscient or not?
Well, I don't really buy that you have to be
we're not omniscient, so yeah, I
agree.
We don't necessarily know that.
I think we need to move on.
Yeah.
I'm going to say thank you.
For the fun.
It was an interesting call. I really, honestly, I'm not nothing sarcastic about that. I really do appreciate the call. It was an interesting set of conversations, and that would be Joe.
So thank
you, Joe. And I'm glad that you called.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and the other one I think for hell is eternal suicide for hating love. That's all it is.
All right. We'll figure that one out
if you don't
in the next hour.
God is love, and if you hate God, we're going to hell.
We have other callers, and we need to get rolling here, so let's move along. Thank you.
I know. Thank you for giving me so much time.
We did. I'm hurting. I'm sure people are like, uh-oh, Tracie. Okay, so